Joining me now to talk more about this is CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist Leslie Sanchez. All right, so Leslie, we were here in the hall when it happened. What's your reaction to Ted Cruz's speech?
You know, as a Texan, I certainly was taken aback by that, and I'm also somebody who helped Ted when he decided to run for election back in 2012 for the U.S. Senate. He was the underdog. He was the non-establishment candidate. He got
support from the Tea Party, and many of us were really excited about his ascension to the Senate. But since he has been in the Senate, I think he's walked away from a lot of the principles, a lot of the messaging that he had when he worked back for George W. Bush, and it was very disappointing. And I think, again, this echoed that. Talking to the Texas delegation, they said it was despicable, disappointing, and dumb. And there was very harsh words from his fellow Texans. These are individuals who said they recognize that he has a re-election campaign in 2 years, and many of them now are so disappointed they have no desire to get involved or engage. These are party loyalists. It was a big move because it embarrassed Texas. I think there were some folks who really wanted him to stand on principle, be magnanimous, and take and step forward to support the Republican nominee. And as tough, you know, they say that about politics. This is a tough sport. It's a hand-to-hand combat sport, and it's not personal. So that's kind of the tone there. They expected so much more.
So it's not personal, although I would raise the point that he brought up. And for him, he says, when someone attacks essentially your wife, your father, you know, that's not something that he can abide. So that was essentially his argument, right, to his fellow Texans and why it is that he took the stand. He says that he did. What about that? That, yes, there's politics, but there's something more than just politics.
You know what this is? This is politics. Because when he said, especially according to the delegates that I spoke with, vote your conscience, that is exactly the terminology they used in the Rules Committee when they were trying to basically have the roll call vote and disrupt this convention to be able to possibly pursue that never Trump movement or anybody but Trump. So this is very much in line with a strategy they had early on that disrupted this convention. And it's almost like he was the protester at our own party convention. That's what was extremely frustrating about it. I think people saw that. And yes, he could make the argument about Heidi, who's an extraordinary person, and certainly defend the likes of his father, that nobody begrudges him for that. But he makes that argument very late in that press conference. It wasn't top of mind. He tried to win on principle, and the delegates who were there say that he really pulled that out of the air, that he realized he was getting so many boos and pushback from the Texas delegation that he went down a personal road. And so a lot of them felt it was not sincere. I'm being very critical here, but I'm also relaying the sentiment of how frustrated the Texas delegation is.
All right, for additional perspective on this, joining our conversation now is Congressman John Carter, Republican from Texas. Congressman, good of you to be with us. I want to ask also your reaction. We just played for our viewers a bit of Ted Cruz's speech, specifically the portion towards the end where he got booed and talked about vote your conscience. What was your reaction to Ted Cruz's speech?
I was extremely disappointed in our senator. You know, we pride ourselves in Texas of being people who keep our word. It's kind of part of our mystique, if you will. And I was floored that he didn't endorse because, quite honestly, he had given a pledge to endorse. And where we come from, that's pretty sacred. So I was very unhappy with our senator when he did that.
I'm going to ask you the same thing I just asked Leslie Sanchez here, our Republican strategist, a moment ago, and that is the argument Senator Cruz makes is that things got beyond a political point for him, that when there are attacks on one's wife, on one's father, as we saw from Donald Trump in the primaries, that is something that he cannot abide. What about that argument?
Well, you know, when you get to that, they also had nude pictures or semi-nude pictures of Mr. Trump's wife that he said he wasn't responsible for what some of his supporters did. It got to be ridiculous is what was going on during that period of time. And quite honestly, if you're going to run for president, you got to put your big boy pants on and not get all upset, you know?
Do you think, sir, it was a mistake for the Trump campaign to allow Senator Cruz to speak at the convention?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting that they knew ahead of time what he was going to say and they let him say it. I think they kind of let him make his own bed.
So you think there was perhaps some political calculation?
I don't know. I'm speculating. We're in the world of politics right here, and everything is political. So speculating, but I think he made a huge political mistake on his speech. He could have added 5 or 6 more words and saved the whole speech, but he didn't do it. And therefore, he broke his word. And there's an awful lot of folks in Texas and other places now that think breaking your word when you give it. And these other people that are not showing up, they're breaking their word too. You know, and we don't like folks that break their word.
I want to ask just one more question before we get on to tonight. And that is, one of the delegates in the Texas delegation said that they believe Ted Cruz had done, quote unquote, irreparable harm to his political future. Would you agree with that, Congressman?
It could be irreparable. I certainly think he's got himself in serious trouble right now. That's a long time. For 4 years is a long time.
Sure.
However, he's got a race to run in 2 years because he's up in 2 years. So, yeah, could he maybe he bought himself an opponent. I don't know what the world's going to do in 2 years. But I think he hurt himself pretty badly. I really do.
All right, let's move on to tonight. What is it that you think Donald Trump needs to accomplish in his speech tonight?
Well, if I was advising Donald Trump, I would want this speech tonight to somehow show what we've been hearing from his employees and from his family about the Donald Trump we don't know. You know, we saw the Donald Trump, the great marketer, and nobody will argue that the guy's not the best marketer in the world. $1 billion worth of free publicity is good marketing. So now let's see what they're talking about when they say you don't know the Donald Trump I know.
You support the idea of a wall, something that his supporters have talked about, and in the call and response campaign stops we hear there is support among Donald Trump's base. But I wonder, is that something you would like to hear him talk about tonight, putting up a wall?
Let me make it clear. I'm chairman of Homeland Security Appropriations. I deal with the border every day, all the time. I was on the gang of 20 that got down to the gang of 8 in the House that tried to rewrite the immigration laws, and they wouldn't bring them up. So in Texas, I'm from Texas. That border is part of my life for my entire life. And quite honestly, I don't like the fact it's messed up right now, because I went to school in Mexico. So, and down in Mexico City when I was a senior in college. So I like the relationship with Mexico. And I don't like lawlessness on the border. It bothers the heck out of me. The wall, you put up a fence or a wall in the places where it's needed. There's no reason to put a wall between Del Rio and the Big Bend. Right. I mean, it makes no sense.
So when you hear Donald Trump and his supporters saying, build that wall, you support that?
In the places we need to stop the flow, it is a useful tool. You have to slow people down and, in fact, stop them if you can.
The reason I ask, do you want him to say that tonight? And if so, what effect do you think that might have on the all-important Hispanic voter population?
Well, you know, it depends on the population you're talking about, okay? If you're talking about the folks that march in the streets, that's one group of people. But you're talking about the business people, second and third generation Hispanics that live in Texas, they're just like any other Texan. They don't like lawlessness. They don't like people that break the law. They would like to have that same relationship they used to have with Mexico, where you could go across the border, have dinner, go shopping, come back, no problems. They'd like to go back to that, like I'd like to go back to that. We probably never will, but they like to. So I don't think that when you try to classify the Hispanic population in Texas, and I'm just talking about Texas, it's a wide variety of people with a wide variety of views. I don't think necessarily trying to make the lawlessness stop at the border is going to upset the lawful people that are in this country. I really don't believe it will.
All right. Well, Congressman John Carter, thank you so much for your time, sir. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.